everything changed. And it's like, holy crap! Here I am thinking whole grains are supposed to be good for you. I've been eating them my whole life. I've been defending my right to eat grains in the face of guys like Lauren Cordain, who started to write about anti-nutrients and things like that. When I got rid of grains, that was when I said I got to tell the world about this shit. So I started. Voice.
Welcome to Barbell Shrugged. I'm Anders Varner. We're at Paleo FX, hanging out with our boy Doug Larson. Adam von Rothfelder's in the house, and we are here with the true legend today and the Primal Blueprint creator. You're like the original caveman.
OG here.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
OC.
Original caveman.
That's it.
I have been waiting to do this interview for, 10, 12 years. We were just talking about.
Outta here.
I'm excited about this. This is super cool. Not only that, I turned 35 today. Our boy, Mr. Strong Coffee, turned 36 this morning when we woke up.
Nice.
And you still look younger than us.
Oh, yeah.
How is
What's up
this
with
possible?
Yeah, I'll be 65 in July.
Yeah,
Really?
Yeah.
65.
Yeah.
Dude's
I
getting
know.
it done way more than we are, too, for sure.
Shit.
Look at him. He looks so young.
I need to work out more or something.
or less.
Or
You've
less.
been slipping since this morning.
I know.
You're over the hump now at 35.
I know.
It's all downhill from
You're
here.
leading up to 35. You're like, mid-30s, early 30s, 36, late 30s.
Yeah, there we
I
go.
know.
That's
Damn
the
it.
slipperiest slope there is. I got 1 year.
My wife, real quick, she wished me a happy birthday before I came here, and she made a cake with the kids. And all of a sudden I hear, oh, shit, come from the kitchen. And she's like, I got a 9 instead of a 6. So she brings out the birthday cake, and it says 39 on it.
Oh.
And I'm like, what? Like those crystal ball to my future.
Yeah.
Turn it upside down
Yeah,
and flip it. You got
exactly.
it, man, right?
Before we kick this thing off, I'm sure everybody is at least somewhat aware of you, but can you give us just a brief little background on
Sure,
kinda-
yeah. Ex-endurance athlete, marathoner in the 70s, probably before your parents were born. Triathlete in the 80s. Again, original, kind of dinosaur triathlete. Chasing performance my whole life. Always interested in health and fitness, and as I got more and more fit, I got less and less healthy. So started to fall apart too early in my racing career. Quit the racing and decided to dedicate the rest of my life to figuring out ways to be strong, lean, fit, happy, healthy, productive, with the least amount of pain, suffering, and sacrifice. Because all the shit I was doing was was painful. It was just managing pain as an endurance athlete. Spent the next 35 plus years chasing human performance, but more for the masses than for athletes. Written 10 books now, 11 books. Mostly based around evolution and the ability that we have to affect our future recreation. That would be how we rebuild, renew, regenerate ourselves on a moment-to-moment basis based on how our genes respond to the signals we give them from the foods we eat, the type of movement we choose to do, the sun exposure, the amount of play, how we use our brain, all these things. So it's Primal Blueprint became a lifestyle sort of template.
So how early was too early, real quick? You said your body broke down early,
I
early
mean,
in
I had
racing.
to,
How old were you when you started experiencing this chronic pain?
So I was 27 in 1980 when I had to quit marathon racing, and I shifted over to triathlon. I did 2 years of triathlon, finished 4th at Ironman in Hawaii, and then just said, you know what, it hurts too much. I'm still too injured. When I say I switched I got injured in running, I couldn't run 100 miles a week anymore at a high level. But I could ride a bike. So my injuries were sort of like osteoarthritis and tendonitis in my hips. So I could ride a bike and I could swim. I just couldn't run 100 miles a week. So I leveraged my running experience into triathlon.
Yeah. When you hear the word paleo now,
Yep.
you kind of created this whole movement a little bit. But what does that mean to you anymore? And like the primal side of things.
I helped advance it. I didn't create it, but.
Well,
But
I'll give it to you.
No,
you don't
but
have to.
Whatever. But
Just take it. You got it.
Here you
but if
go.
we go back, 10 or 15 years, again, looking at how evolution shaped who we are today and how we've lost track of that and lost control of that, the term paleo seemed to be appropriate to describe the lifestyle of our ancient ancestors, and particularly in the early days, paleo was basically really about diet and what they ate and how that created an expectation of our genes. So our genes are this recipe that wants to build us strong and lean, has certain expectations of certain inputs. If we don't give it those inputs, if we give it ho-hos and ding-dongs and Coca-Cola and Big Macs all the time, we're going to fall apart, which we see in society. So paleo became a great initial operating term. I think, unfortunately, over the last 5 years, it's kind of declining in popularity as a search term. I think it's been too attached to the caveman experience and less associated with what it should be, which is an ancestral approach to health, which is basically looking at real food, getting a lot of sleep, movement patterns that are building us up rather than tearing us down and things like that. So, I have great expectations for where the world is headed in this movement, in this ancestral world. That's one of the original reasons that I chose Primal as my brand and stayed away from the word paleo, is I felt that paleo, again, had that connotation of kind of the caveman, camp out in your backyard and hunt for neighbors' pets or whatever it was. It was some kind of weird pigeonhole that a lot of people got turned off. A lot of people got attracted to it, right, for the same reasons. But a lot of people got turned off to. So primal became of primary importance, sort of the primal urge, primal scream, primal kind of thing. So I'm glad I spent the time to work on a brand name that had a little bit more mass appeal across a broad spectrum.
Mm-hmm. So have you always kind of eaten the way that you eat now, or did you make like a full 180 shift, like being an endurance athlete? Was it super high carb, low fat back in the day, and then total flip?
Yeah. If you look, the legendary diet of Michael Phelps would be a good example. You see what that cat used to eat during his training and racing days.
It was like 10,000 calories.
Yeah. Which I would sometimes, I take a little bit of an issue with it. I don't think you can, on a regular basis, shove that amount of calories down your pie hole, but maybe.
So it makes for a good clip on
its own story.
He wants to eat 10,000 calories in a day.
Yeah. But no, I was, there was a time, first of all, when everybody in the science world thought that this whole endurance experience was about managing glycogen. It was about managing carbohydrate intake and making sure, because, if you run out of glycogen, you hit the wall, the ball game's over. Covert Bailey wrote a book called Fit or Fat, and his sort of key word was fat burns in the carbohydrate flame. So there's a lot of this. One of the greatest science writers and researchers around, Tim Noakes, promoted this thing about managing carbohydrates and managing glycogen and carbo loading and all this stuff. So for decades, that's what we did. As endurance athletes, you managed glycogen stores. And you sort of realized that maybe you were going to train yourself to burn fat just by the very nature of putting in the miles. There was still this requirement that you had to just keep taking in carbohydrates to keep doing it. And then the irony of being an endurance athlete is you do it every single day. So you deplete carbohydrates on day one on a long workout, and then if you're going to do a long workout the next day, you got to replenish carbohydrates. And so you get into this cycle where you're taking in, I was taking in minimum 500 and sometimes 1,000 grams of carbs a day. And again, if you do the math, 1,000 grams of carbs is only 4,000 calories. So it's not like 10,000. But you think about 1,000 grams of carbs. But
that's insane.
Is
that all liquid drinking?
No, God. Well, beer. There's a lot of beer in there.
Yeah.
This is back in the days when some of the best runners in the world were drinking copious amounts. They were basically shit-faced every night, and then going out and running hard again the next day, because beer was a legitimate carbo loading, modality, if you will. But lots of spaghetti, lots of bread, pasta, cereal. There was an attempt to get some whole grains in there, but that in and of itself became problematic for me, the whole grain side of things. So I went from, I didn't do a 180. It was a gradual turn, like a big, an oil tanker trying to turn around in a. They don't really do a 180, but it was first of all recognizing when I had to quit that I didn't need that amount of calories, and I was kind of afraid that I was going to get skinny fat because I was never going to get big. I just figured I'd put on some fat if I kept eating like that, some body fat. So I cut back on the amount of food I was eating, and then I started doing the research on healthy fats, and I realized that I had been missing some healthy fats in my diet. Again, in conjunction with this sort of accepted mantra that you needed to carbo load, was you had to avoid fats because of heart disease, right? So I had to, again, it was like the worst of both worlds, not the best of both worlds. So I started increasing the amount of healthy fats in my diet. I started looking. I'd always been doing research. I was, I was a biology major in college. I was pre-med. I'd sort of chased performance through diet from the early days anyway, even though the advice was wrong. I was reading all the books. Robert Haas wrote a book called Eat to Win. It was really very carb-centric, and so on. So over the time, I decreased the amount of carbs, increased the amount of fat, and then I was cutting way back on the work. And that was the other thing that I realized, that I'd been working way too hard, and that they were, as I started coaching people, professional athletes in my late 30s, and I was still keeping up with them. I was like, I had these guys that were racing for world championships, and I'd be out training with them, not every day, and that was the big issue. I could train with them once or twice a week and ride with them or run with them. I just couldn't do it every day. So as I got older, my recovery time, expanded. I needed more recovery time, but my performance was still right up there on probably 30% of the work that I'd been doing in the height of my career. So I started to put these things together, that we don't need to train that much, that recovery is critical to this. I started to realize that that this idea of burning fat was really critical to endurance performance, that you had to learn how to burn fat. And if you could burn fat and then offset the need to take in extraneous carbohydrates, that would be a great performance enhancer. So over the years, I developed this Primal Blueprint, which looked at what is, about 15 years ago, I created the Primal Blueprint Carbohydrate Curve. And it's this thing that I doodled on a napkin. And it basically had these divisions of, 0 to 50 was in ketosis, 50 to 100 is sort of the sweet spot for weight loss, 100 to 150 is like maintenance for weight for your weight, and then anything above 150 on a daily basis in terms of grams of carbs was problematic. And I caught a lot of shit for it in the early days. Like, how can you possibly say this? It's been 15 years since I created that chart, and every single year it gets more and more clear to me that was pretty much spot on.
Yeah. Well, and we talked to Mike Nelson yesterday, the metabolic variability. Yeah. Turns out, maybe you were onto something.
Yeah. No, exactly. So, and what comes from that is that nobody needs more than 150 grams of carbs a day. I don't care what if you're an endurance athlete and you haven't trained in keto and you haven't, become fat adapted or keto adapted, maybe you need more than that, but you don't need 500 because.
What about Ben Pekulski right there, like former top 10 bodybuilder in the world? Like, would a guy like that need more than 150 grams of carbs a day just to be fucking huge?
No, but I know. But I mean, we have
He's
a lot of
extreme outliers.
There's a lot of
humans.
Sure.
Not Ben Pekulski.
Yeah, no, but I mean, but that's a good point, because if you're trying to do something,
we're talking about you right now.
If there's something. If there's,
if come up and monitor the conversation, to make sure it's okay.
If he, if you are an outlier and you want to do some inhumane activity, then you take, other measures. But if you're trying to be human, and not, no offense, because he's human, but you know what I mean. If you're trying to be sort of
no offense, I'm sorry, sorry,
fit that paradigm. If you're trying to fit that paradigm, then you don't need more than 150 grams of carbs a day. So, so this all became. It coalesced about 15 years ago into sort of a template that I wanted to explore as something that would work for just about everybody, and a general guideline, and it included eating lots of plants and animals and avoiding toxic foods, and this became the sort of part of the whole food movement. Moving around a lot at a low level of activity, lifting heavy things once in a while, sprinting once in a while, getting plenty of sleep. So that became the Primal Blueprint template. But on the food side, it continues to evolve, because I did a keto experiment 2 years ago, and I was fine. By the way, at 15 years, I'd given up grains. That was the biggest thing in my life. That was life changing for me. That's what really set me on this path. Was when I got rid of my arthritis, when I got rid of my joint pain, when I got rid of my gastroesophageal reflux, when I got rid of my irritable bowel syndrome that had run my life, everything changed. And I was like, holy crap! Here I am thinking whole grains are supposed to be good for you. I've been eating them my whole life. I've been defending my right to eat grains in the face of guys like Lauren Cordain, who started to write about anti-nutrients and things like that. When I got rid of grains, that was when I said, I got to tell the world about this shit. So I started Mark's Daily Apple, basically to do that. And so in the ensuing decade, I was great. Great body fat, great body composition, if I do say so myself.
I'm incredibly good looking.
We'll confirm.
If you're listening on the radio
I've seen you
right now.
I've seen you on the beach. We'll confirm.
So, I had great energy, never got sick, all these things that we look for. And then, I'm a researcher, and I started looking at keto as just as a modality for treating certain neurological diseases. And it occurred to me that keto might be just the next level stuff in human performance. And because even though I was fine where I wasn't feeling like I could, I'm always looking for the next thing in my life. I'm a performance chaser. So I thought, well, I'll just do a keto experiment, see what happens. And, I did 2 months of deep keto, and I felt great. I had more energy. I literally felt like I put on a little bit of muscle, which I thought was almost impossible when you're keto. Some of the lingering minor joint stuff went down even further, diminished even further. I found that I didn't need as much sleep at night to get the same quality of sleep. So it was compelling to me. So I decided to write a book about keto. And then as I got into the research writing the book, I realized keto is just a tool. It's calling upon human evolution. We only exist today because our ancestors 10,000, 50,000, a million years ago had access to keto. Keto is what kept us alive. It's this ability to take stored body fat and burn the fat in the muscles for real energy. But then because the brain typically wants glucose, and if you don't eat carbohydrates for 3 days or 4 days, there's no glucose available. But to be able to take some of the rest of the fat, send it to the liver and make ketones, which offsets the need for glucose. It's such an elegant system that we developed. It's why we live today. And yet most people never tap into that system. So I just thought by tapping into that system, I could increase my metabolic flexibility. And by that I mean the ability to extract energy from stored fat on my body, from fat on my plate, from glycogen in my muscles, from carbohydrates on my plate, from the ketones that my liver is making, and last, and hopefully least, from amino acids in the form of gluconeogenesis.
I'm just curious. You talked about how incredibly shredded and good-looking you are. What did it look like? What is your body comp when you're eating 1,000 grams of carbs a day?
So, because I was running 100 miles a week.
Just paper thin?
Yeah, it was. So I'm not a big guy, right? I'm 168 to 170 pounds on a good day.
Shredded.
If I've been in the gym with any regularity. So I raced at 30 pounds less than that.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
So I raced at 138 to 140.
Wow.
And by the way, at that weight, at 5'10", I was still a big marathoner.
Yeah.
Not big. I was probably 7-8 pounds more than I should have been. And yet the same body fat level. So you can imagine how much less muscle I had in those days. What happened to all those calories? A, they got burned by running. B, they got, and this is where it gets interesting, I think. This spontaneous thermogenesis. I just ran hot all the time to the extent that I would, sweat in my sleep in a cold room. So the body adjusts for excess calories by turning up the furnace. And that's not a good thing. So a lot of people
a lot of people would think that's a
bingo.
good thing. Right. So
no, that's exactly. Yeah. So people are kind of have these assumptions about how much food is an appropriate amount of food, right? And I think everybody that we know and everybody around tries to see what they can get away. What's the most amount of food I can get away with and not gain weight? What's the most amount of this dessert I can have and not feel like crap or whatever? So it's this mentality of I want to eat more. And, you go to the gym and you see people on the treadmill and they're doing 400, 500, 600 calories on the readout. And it's okay, what are you doing? You training for a 10K or a marathon? Oh, no, I just like to eat. So I'm going to the gym and I'm struggling and suffering and sweating and grunting and groaning, for 45 minutes so I can go back and have a few more bites of something I probably shouldn't have in the first place. So this mentality that we have about, how much food is appropriate to keep us going, it's based on this excessive consumption model, right, where we're trying to and so in the gym, people are trying to build a fast metabolism. Why? So they can eat more food. It's just ridiculous if you think about it. So the issue isn't, whether you can eat more food. The issue is, do you get hungry? Because if you don't get hungry, who cares if you eat more food? If you're not hungry, if you're finished eating and you're not hungry, and whether or not you finish what's on your plate that's the issue is really what's the least amount of food I can eat, maintain muscle mass or gain muscle mass, maintain energy, never get sick, and most importantly, not be hungry. Because if I'm hungry, everything falls out the window. But if I'm not hungry and I'm maintaining my mass, I'm actually a more efficient human being. So now we get back to longevity, and people are chasing a fast metabolism just because they want to be able to eat more food, or they think a fast metabolism is going to somehow help them, burn off extra calories. And in some cases it will, but there's a downside to that. And in the animal kingdom, animals that have the fastest metabolism live the shortest lifespans, and those that have a slower metabolism tend to live longer. So if you're if you're in this realm and you're trying to maximize longevity, you don't want to be chasing a fast metabolism. You actually want to be chasing, and this is in my estimation, some lowered metabolism, so you rev at a very low rate when you're resting, and you could go hard whenever you go hard, but there's no reason to go hard all the time every day, right?
I've heard you talk about some of your, like, when you say have like a piece of cheesecake, that you can take a bite of it, and you're like, that one bite was what I needed, and by the second bite, you're past the moment.
No,
of
or the
cheesecake.
Fourth or fifth. I mean,
right.
But you're right. There's a diminishing return to, if you look at hedonistic tendencies, that first bite is freaking awesome almost every time, and then the second bite's like, oh, that's great. It's, almost as awesome. And the third, by the fourth or fifth bite, to quote, I think it was Winston Churchill, we've established what you are. Now we're just haggling over price. To see if we can finish the piece of cheesecake that the establishment served up as a, quote, serving, or that the hostess served up as a serving of dessert. And who's to say what a serving is? Maybe a serving is just 3 or 4 bites, or 4 or 5 bites, or 1 bite. But the point is, I'm not suggesting that people avoid those sort of hedonistic foods like cheesecake. I just happen to call on cheesecake because it's one of my favorite.
Yeah, I can't remember what other podcasts I was listening to. You were talking in great detail about cheesecake.
Yeah, but I mean, my favorite experience for dessert ever was Cherry Garcia ice cream with creme de cassis on it. So just
the Cherry Garcia. What's the rest of that?
Creme de cassis is a liqueur that's made from berries.
There you go.
Yeah. And I would, there was a day when I would eat a half gallon of ice cream a day. There was a night. There was a time in my life, about 10 years, I would eat a half gallon of ice cream every day at the end of the day, every night. And if I didn't have any in the house and it was 10 o'clock at night, I'd go down to Thrifty's and buy a big brick of chocolate. So I had
sounds like my MMA fighting. You go home and just kill a pizza and some ice cream because you felt calorie low.
Yeah. But I mean, that's the burden of a sugar burner, where you've depleted all those carbohydrates. You're gonna have to go do it again tomorrow. You're not good at burning fat because you haven't done the work and you haven't adapted your diet to a fat adaptation modality, and so now you're just you're chained to the carbohydrate treadmill.
But all of this, in the actual food, like there's a progression of it. Now you have been, but with the Primal Kitchen and creating your own food, so it's much easier for people to find this stuff.
Nice segue. I love
that.
Yeah.
I got your game here. I know you got to be out of here in 20 minutes.
Mark slipped you a 20 before the show.
Yeah.
Keep it tight.
He invited me to speak on his panel here afterwards. You guys didn't know.
So one of the things that I've been involved in writing a lot about food and clean food on Mark's Daily Apple and in my books, and I'm trying to espouse this lifestyle where people are getting healthy fats and not trans fats and partially hydrogenated fats and oils, and cutting back on sugars and processed carbohydrates, and getting back to a real food diet. Well, it's hard sometimes to eat a real food diet on a hectic lifestyle that we have. What we do a lot on Mark's Daily Apple is we do a lot of recipes, and over the years, the recipes have involved sauces that are healthy sauces that use healthy oils and impart a not just better taste to the foods, but actually impart some functionality to the food. And I realized after banging my head against the wall for 10 years on Mark's Daily Apple that I was writing so much about food, and yet these foods didn't exist in the marketplace, the ones that I would buy myself. So I started creating healthy sauces, dressings, and toppings, the things that you could put on food that would impart great taste and then added functionality. And so literally, not only great taste, but the concept was the more you put on the food, the healthier the meal became. Yeah. And my biggest, the bone I've had to pick with the health food industry for the longest time is everybody would agree that a big salad full of lots of different colorful vegetables is one of the healthiest things you can eat.
A big-ass salad?
A big-ass salad.
Did you steal that from Elaine?
From
Seinfeld?
Oh, no.
Oh.
She had the big salad.
She stole
big
it from you.
She stole it from me. No, but here's what happened. Back in 1981 or 82.
Oh, Seinfeld, you're about to get called
Yeah,
out.
no shit. No, I almost started a retail store called the Big Ass Store. And we're just going to sell giant versions of everything, right? And it was going to be the Big Ass Store. And my to-be partner at the time was one of the largest purveyors of ski equipment. Buddy Hoffman was his name. And Any Mountain Sports in Cupertino. Shout out to Buddy. But anyway, so we bagged that idea. But I've been like the big ass guy for a long time. So anyway, so big ass salad, and now big asses are in. By the way,
yeah. I was to say, we like big asses too.
Yeah. I just moved to Miami Beach, and big asses are in.
Especially there.
The Brazilians.
Yeah. Right. So
Cuban chicks.
So anyway, so I was just
got excited.
Don't forget about
you just alienated every female that listens to the show. All four of you.
All of you.
No.
Sorry.
No, thank you, Kardashians.
Well, actually, so briefly for someone that doesn't have like a good lipid biochemistry background or something like that, like as an example, me and my wife, we always buy the avocado oil based mayonnaise that you guys sell. So
yes.
like, why would something like avocado oil be that much different than
canola oil? Canola is, you could go down the list of things. It's higher in omega-6 fats, which are pro-inflammatory. It's got typically it's processed from rapeseed, which sounds a lot worse than it actually is. But the methods of processing are pretty bad. Avocado oil has probably the greatest fatty acid profile of any of the oils. It's highest in monounsaturated fats, which are what we're chasing. So those are what the industry would call heart healthy fats. And so we decided to use avocado oil as the base for the mayonnaise, and then it's also the base for the salad dressing. So the point is, and again, I was going back to this bone I have to pick with the health food industry, is I make a big ass salad, and then I'm told to use dressing sparingly, because dressing, no matter what it is bad. It's either got too much fat, or it's got too much sugar, or it's got too much artificial sweeteners. But use dressing sparingly. I'm like, dude, I'm trying to choke down this green leafy stuff, and I want it to be as tasty as possible. So I wanted to make a dressing that the more you put on, the healthier it would become. And I've got somebody who, in a restaurant setting where they serve the dressing, somebody asked the other day for extra dressing, and the gal behind the counter is going, how much? And he said, basically make it lettuce soup. So I like that. I like that.
But this has actually helped a lot of people find this primal paleo lifestyle.
It's amazing.
I mean, getting into
the Chipotle mayo is insane. Like anybody who I've tried to be paleo in the past X years will be like, man, have you tried this paleo mayo? It's amazing. I'm like, now you're paleo.
Yeah, now you're paleo.
Way to go, asshole.
Yeah, I know, but you can't have your friends listen to you.
You could drag them. You could
be the world's expert
water,
at
but you can't make them drink, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Especially never a prophet in your own land.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, so we've got this amazing. We're in 7,000 stores across the country now, and we've got 11 flavors of dressings, and we got 3 flavors of mayo, and I think but to your point, we're changing the world because having moved to South Beach and Miami Beach recently, I meet a lot of new people, and just in the course of conversation, it comes up, what do you do? And if I mention, I make this Primal Kitchen, a lot of people will say, oh, I have that in my, I buy that green jar, right, or whatever. And they never heard of me, and they never heard of paleo, they never heard of primal, but they're looking for a healthier version of. They sort of know that they want to have a healthier version of a dressing or a condiment or something to put on their food. So
it's really nice when you see the guy with the spear running, jumping. You're like, good for you.
Good for you. Yeah.
But one thing that I struggled with for a long time, owning a gym for 6 years, and everyone wants to know about nutrition.
Yeah.
And you never have time to sit down and explain, here's what a protein does. Here's the hormonal effect. This is a carbohydrate. This is how we fuel. And it's really easy to just be like, hey, check out this paleo thing.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden you've got a gym full of people that don't eat carbohydrates at all. They've gone off the deep end.
And they don't know why.
They're eating 4 pounds of meat a day, and it's not sustainable. And they're like, paleo sucks. How do we get the education to the coaches so that people can...
Oh, look at you, man.
Dude,
You're
I'm a gangster.
Strong Coffee Company is a community built by people like you. People that take the time to educate and to apply all things that matter. Whether you're in the gym, the office, or at home, we want to help make you better. Introducing our full, rich, instant nutritional energy drink, the cafe latte. Visit strongcoffeecompany.com. Use BBS20 to receive 20% off today.
A segue.
Right.
I love it.
Right?
I'm on. Yeah,
Mark's like,
here.
how long do I got to talk about this?
No.
Boom!
Wait, yeah.
10 minutes.
Right,
I got this.
Ready?
Look,
All right.
Go.
next time I see you, you owe me 2 hours, by
for
the way.
Sure. No. It's my pleasure.
Yeah.
We could do it later on today if you want.
No, I'm not joking.
Yeah, okay. I'm not either. I got a Frisbee game this afternoon, but anyway.
Yeah.
So having had the experience of having one of the most popular websites in the ancestral world, if not the most popular, for 10 years with Mark's Daily Apple, I have a lot of people whose lives have changed. I mean, it's gratifying. What they call psychic income is amazing. We're at this event, and I have people come up to me that I've never met before, tell me that their lives were changed forever by having adopted some of the strategies that we espouse at Mark's Daily Apple and in the Primal Blueprint in the books. So about 5 years ago, we decided that, my original goal was to change the lives of 10 million people. I just upped that. I added a zero about 3 years ago to 100 million people. I'm serious. I want to change the way the world eats. Part of it is through the food. Part of it is through leveraging the technology that my team has developed over the last 10 years, which seems to be embraced by a lot of different communities, and that is this Primal Blueprint. So I decided that we would start the Primal Health Coach Institute, and we now train people to become life coaches, health coaches. It's an online program. It's very robust. We have at this event, we have doctors, MDs who have taken it, who just think it's the greatest thing. Al Dannenberg, a periodontist, is speaking at the event based on his experience. We've got nurses and trainers and people who just want the education, who just want to learn, do a deeper dive into primal and paleo. So what we do is it's an online experience. It's self-paced, one module a week. If that's as fast as you can go. 13 modules of the science and the background and the history and the evolution. And you have to take an exam to get to the next level, and then 3 modules of actual coaching practices. I brought in Christine Hassler, one of the top coaches. So she works with people with a lot of video experience on how to work with a new client, how to enroll a new client, how to teach, turn objections into teachable, coachable moments, things like that. We have a business building section, so I really want people to make a living doing this, and not just a living, but a good living, a great living. So we've put a couple thousand people through the program, and it's just on fire, and we're really, and now we see a lot of competition in that arena too. There are not a lot, but there are other companies doing ancestral health coaching programs, which is great. I think rising tide, lifts all boats. And I think that's one of the ways that we're going to change the world is by having that one-on-one experience. So, even if you are knowledgeable about the Primal Blueprint and you've got friends and family who just like, Adam, you don't know what you're talking about.
Totally.
Now you've got sort of a neutral third-party expert who can come into your life and coach you through this transition.
And it's not Dr. Oz.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Seinfeld and Dr. Oz got smashed.
Man, I mean, every time it's like, I saw that Dr. Oz. I'm like, I told you that 8 years ago too.
Yeah.
So.
I know. So that's really exciting, though, to be able to leverage the technology. I call it technology. It's just the oldest technology in the world. It's just eating real food.
Yeah.
And, I mean, this is the irony, and I don't want to spill any massive trade secrets here, but I've written 10 books now. I've done hundreds of seminars. I've done 3-day experiences we call Primal Con, and the irony is I could tell you everything you need to do in 2 sheets of paper, right, to change your life and to get healthy again. But people want to hear it different ways. Some another example is in the coaching realm, and why do people need a coach or want a coach? Because not everybody needs a coach. Some people get it. Oh, I'll do that. I'll just check off the box and I'll go do it. I don't need anybody looking over my shoulder. But my wife's an example. She was a personal trainer when I met her. She's wickedly fit. She knows how to work out. She will not go to the gym without a trainer. She just wants somebody looking over and just making sure that she's on her game that day.
That's one of the things I really dug about Mark's Daily Apple way back in the day. Whenever I can't remember when I found it, but I felt like everybody's looking for kind of a relationship with whoever their coach is, and through the online platform, we're able to sort of develop some trust with people. And you coming from a performance background and me owning a gym and being in that space, I just really was like, how do I help people?
Yep.
Because I can't sit down and do one-on-one coaching every single day. And Mark's Daily Apple was just a massive influence in my ability to be able to coach people and just relate to them, because I was able to somehow through the internet find you. So
awesome. That's. I mean, I love to hear that, because that was always my intent, was to, to be a resource for whoever wanted to use it. And if it was a gym owner who didn't have the time to, drill down deeply one person at a time, to be able to have a resource that was fairly prolifically written. In fact, I think we've got over 4,000 articles now, and God knows 6 million words or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I still get the dings every day, the notification. I'm like, boom, something to read. All right, and it's quick too, so people can subscribe to Mark's Daily Apple, get these daily tips.
Yep.
And where's the best place to go for that? It's markdailiesapple.com.
Yeah, marksdailyapple.com. We're now almost 12 years old, which just blows my mind. And primalkitchen.com for the food stuff. We got a little bit more time. If you got more questions here, I'm gonna play it right up to the edge. So
what are you speaking on in the panel?
This is the State of the Union, paleo.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
You know what's really funny? You're on the cover of Paleo magazine this week, right?
No, he actually has his own magazine.
Oh, then that's what
Primal
it is.
Living.
I was in the middle of Sprouts.
Mark Sisson's and Primal Living.
Nothing's cooler, to be honest with you, about this job than when you're at the grocery store and you look over and you're like, I'm gonna interview that guy next week.
I know
that's
him.
dope. We're friends.
Yeah, I was in Venice, and I seen the magazine for the first time, and I'm like, oh, cool, Mark's doing something local. Yeah. And then I'm down in Austin. I'm like, wait, Mark's doing something national. And so, what is this magazine? It's Mark Sisson's Primal Living.
It's a
great looking magazine.
No, it's a good looking magazine. If I do say so.
Great headshot.
No,
killing me.
What can I say? This great publishing company came to me about a year ago and said, this is what we do. We do we love your segment. We like the niche that you're in. We think there's an opportunity to do a one-off magazine publication. Is what they do, and they like the brand and they like the concept. So they basically put this magazine together, which it's essentially a book. I mean, if you read it from cover to cover, you'll get every bit of the information you'd get in my books. On the blog. It's a very well done publication, but the sort of the flip side to that is there ain't going to be another issue, because I said everything possible.
I actually sometimes wonder that, like, we teach the basics so much, and so many people just need to understand the basics, but we still have to keep creating.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a Cliff Notes to your book?
Yeah, it's just
so it's like a $5 Cliff Notes?
Like that's $12.95.
$12.95, okay. I didn't know how much the magazine is. $12.95
You haven't bought a magazine in 20 years.
Yeah, it has been a while.
How expensive paper is, we're running out of trees.
It's crazy. It's crazy. It's just another way of saying these things. I'm telling you, when I say I could tell you everything you need to know about health, probably 2 paragraphs, but I'll expand it to 2 pages. But the point is, people need to hear things differently. It needs to come into their brain different ways. Yeah. Different people resonate with different. Some people like to hear everything. They want to just get it from all the multimedia. I mean, people listen to podcasts of me, a lot, and I don't really stray too much from that original theme, but they seem to want to, understand the concept through the lens of a Joe Rogan or through the lens of a Sally Podcaster, right?
Well, it's also their life. Like, if I'm a CrossFitter, I still want to eat healthy.
Yeah.
And if you're an endurance runner, you still want to eat healthy. So how do we attack all of this? Because their needs aren't actually the same. Even though at a basic level, we still have to keep things clean, keep things pretty tight.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You have to